So starting out, my name is Austyn Smith. Thank you for that introduction. Uh, also stated that I am funded by Colorado College of Engineering. And a lot of the work I've done this summer that I'll be talking about is with Kansas Dairy Ingredients. And then I've done some additional work with Pollution Prevention Institute at K-State University. So to begin, I'll talk about the work I did with KDI and their case study, go over their company background, incentives to change, their pollution prevention projects that they've been doing, and the results of all those. I'll briefly discuss my work with pollution prevention as well at the end. So first up, KDI, their case study. KDI was founded in 2012 as a privately owned and operated dairy company. They produce a lot of different dairy products. The main ones today that we'll worry about are ultra filtered milk and cheese. And during this manufacturing process, they also produce this byproduct of potable water, which is just a drinkable quality of water. And that gets used within the company to conserve city water usage and well water usage. Location-wise, they're headquartered in Overland Park, Kansas, but their manufacturing processes all occur in Hugoton, Kansas. They have a pre-existing 30,000 square foot facility, and they've recently added a 90,000 square foot cheese plant expansion. And that is wrapping up construction now. They began operating in it, but they're not yet at full operation capacity. So incentives to change at KDI are more like reasons to continue doing what they're doing. They've kind of been recognized as having environmental initiative starting back in 2017 by KDHE. And in 2018, 2019, 2021, they were awarded by EPA for their pollution prevention projects happening during those years. And their environmental initiative will continue by reaching their goals for 2025 that I have listed here. So city water usage reduced by 50%, sending less solid waste to landfill by 50%, and GHG emissions by 15%. So let's get into their projects that they did this summer. I'll discuss a little bit of their process. And then one of the first projects they did is recovering water in their cheese plant. And that saves on city water usage. And then the additional water that they are able to extract from this process expands the previously existing projects that I'll discuss. And all this stuff contributes to this concept of circular economy that I'll talk about. So this is kind of their process. And then I'll discuss the milk side a little bit to discuss previously existing projects. So those projects deal with cleaning and irrigation. And those were kind of spurred on from being able to extract water from their process. So before the cheese plant, the only manufacturing process that was occurring is the milk side. And so what they were doing was they were trying to reduce the water weight of their product. And they did that through ultrafiltration, which is just a reverse osmosis process that filters out lactose, water, and minerals. And they're able to produce the following products: ultrafiltered milk, UFP, and then they have the byproduct potable water that can now be used for cleaning processes within their facility. And that's what they did. Once it's used for cleaning, it actually gets recollected, treated in a different way, and then sent out to an irrigation pond where they can irrigate crops with that water. On the cheese side, their new plant, the milk is pasteurized, curdled to produce cheese, and then excess liquids called whey, which contain whey proteins, and then all the contents of milk water get drained away, and they are able to recollect the whey proteins to produce WPC, and then milk water gets treated the same to produce UFP and potable water. So now they have this additional amount of potable water. In addition to this, on the cheese plant side, they're able to utilize the potable water in their cheese plant to completely eliminate city water usage from that side of their manufacturing process. And that potable water then is able to be recovered so that the environmental benefit of those previously existing projects are maintained. And then they're able to add on to them, that I'll discuss later on, from the potable water collected from the way that is processed. So by eliminating the city water usage from the cheese plant, they currently are saving 351,000 gallons per year and an economic savings of $512 per year. They have a potential of this growing once the plant reaches full operating capacity in the next year or so, I'd say. The total cost of this was about $1.3 million. It's due to just all the equipment necessary to transport the water from the storage tank to the cheese plant process, and then take the extracted water, put it back into potable water storage. So from there, the potable water, all this additional potable water is then used for cleaning, as I discussed. And based on their current milk intake, they're able to produce 38 million gallons of extracted potable water per year. So that saves the same amount on city water usage. And that has a associated savings of about $55,000 per year. The cost of all this process comes out from all the equipment necessary to transport or transform whey into potable water. And pictured above, you can see how the filtration process kind of brings it down from milk into potable water on the milk side. This is what's pictured here. On the cheese plant side, you would have cheese, whey, and then you'd have the UFP and then potable water. So once it's used for cleaning, it can be recollected and treated in a different way that I'll discuss later. And that has an environmental impact of 38 million gallons a year, assuming that no water is lost during this treatment process. Unfortunately, there's no economic savings for this because they're not financially responsible for the water demand for crop irrigation. That is the farmers' payout. There are some other benefits though, like it allows for this circular economy concept that I'll discuss. But getting back to the treatment process for this water, the cost to convert an anaerobic digester to a sequence of batch reactor was about $1 million. The reason they needed to do that was they had to maintain the water at a quality that is beneficial to crops. And when they added their cheese plant, it wasn't. So this was kind of an unforeseeable cost expenditure. And pictured here, we have the irrigation lagoon, and then there's a little stick sticking out of the irrigation pond that tells them how high it is. So they have to stay within 2 and 15 feet. And then above that, you have a picture of the effluent gauge showing that they're pumping out about 500 gallons per minute. And below that is a gauge telling us that there's about 320 acre feet that's been pumped out over the course of this entire implementation. So that saved a total of about 100 billion gallons over the course of the last few years. So the circular economy concept basically makes it to where when they're irrigating, they're able to help grow local crops, which contribute to local feed, and then that contributes to local dairy. And some of that gets back to their raw milk intake. So, and by doing this, they maintain, or they keep a lot of the same materials within the same cycle. And this allows us to get into the circular economy concept, where in circular economy, they take raw materials, produce it into a product that can be used, recycled back into the same raw materials to be used again. What this does is it reduces the amount of limited resources that go to waste, whereas in linear economies and reuse economies that we currently are using, a lot of those resources end up going to waste and trash collection. So in the circular economy, KDI contributes to raw milk, potable water, UFP, and crop water. And then other companies take over where it comes to crops, feed, and dairy production. By doing this, though, they are able to maintain surface water within the cycle. And that reduces the amount of limited resources from the Ogallala Aquifer being brought up from down below. So as a summary of what they've done this last year or so, they've got about 76 million gallons being saved, with about a savings of $56,000 a year. This project cost was about 5.7 million. With the considering a simple payback period, it looks pretty bad with 5.7 billion and 56,000 savings per year. But just keep in mind that they're not at full operation capacity yet. And then if you alternatively think about return on investment, they're also being able to sell cheese, WPC, and an additional amount of UFP, which will bring a lot more revenue, and they'll start to turn profit pretty soon. There's also some GHG emissions that are reductions are occurring through this because water would require pumping the water, and the treatment of the water would have costed energy, and that has some GHG associated GHG emissions with producing that energy. So the GHG calculator has good assumptions for project 1 and 2 that makes sense, but for project 3 it's an overestimate because the well water for the irrigation would just be pumped up and distributed. It doesn't receive the treatment that is assumed by the GHG calculator. Moving on to some additional work I did with the Pollution Prevention Institute. I did reassessments, which is essentially just updating previously recommended projects to previously visited companies. With that, I looked up some project costs, environmental benefits, and economic savings of projects that they've implemented. The most important being project costs that contributes to that match documentation that we discussed earlier. And that just maintains our funding by showing that companies are investing in pollution prevention through our work. In addition to that, I was able to accompany the circuit rider on many of the visits just to get some hands-on experience and learn about different industries. So some acknowledgments I'd like to make. I'd like to thank KDI and especially Matt Green for their cooperation and support through this process. Also like to thank Pollution Prevention Institute for this amazing experience. I've enjoyed working with superiors, my fellow peers, and especially want to thank Carl R. Ice College of Engineering for making this opportunity possible. Any questions for me? Yes.
Austyn, what was your favorite thing about the internship? And then conversely, what was the hardest thing?
Favorite thing was probably being able to go out on the visit. It was kind of long awaited for. I wasn't able to go on my visit till about halfway through the internship because they were going through a lot of the construction with the cheese plant. And then what was your second question?
Conversely, what was the hardest thing? And maybe you just answered that. Too,
yeah,
right?
yeah. It was my favorite thing, and the most hard thing was just waiting. So yes.
Austyn, you showed a lot of great numbers. Actually, you answered a lot of my questions. You're going through it. I was wondering about, you getting percentages, and then you gave overall. One question: what did you do those calculations? Did you work with? Was it Matt Green that I just saw? Was that the person you worked with to come up with those numbers?
Right. Yeah.
Is that something they had before? Did they have an idea, or were you able to provide that to them to give them an idea?
So what they had was a lot of data, but some of the results that we calculated weren't necessarily something they collected themselves. But they had a lot of the information necessary to, if they wanted to, they probably could have found it out themselves.
Okay.
But
so maybe that final table is something you're able to pull together for them.
Oh yeah.
Yeah. Okay. So that's great. Also, it's a small town and doing all that. How much is 36 million gallons of water or something for the city? Whatever, is that a big percentage of what the city has to provide, or is that?
I would think so. I did not, incline to that when I was there, but I definitely think that the request of, they did 104 they've saved 104 gallons just from the irrigation project alone in the last 2 years. That seems remarkable to me, but I'm not sure what the city provides on a yearly basis.
You mentioned the potable water from the cheese,
Mhm.
byproduct, but what was the other byproduct from the cheese water, I guess, in the?
So there's several products that they produce. I'll just go back to the
And if
tree
you
real
wouldn't
quick.
mind repeating the question, because then people online can hear.
Absolutely.
Thank you.
So the question was, what was the other byproduct produced on the cheese side, correct?
Yeah.
So really they produce cheese, WPC and UFP. What those are, WPC is whey protein content, which is just kind of like whey, kind of muscle milk stuff. And then UFP is ultra filtered permeate. And so that's just a high lactose product that's actually gets used in animal feed. And that's why in the circular economy, you have UFP going into animal feed here. And then byproduct wise, the only byproduct here is potable water. Everything else gets sold off to different companies in local areas.
My follow-up question is the bait.
Yeah. So crop growth, feed production, and dairy, local dairies are outside of their jurisdiction, right? They only produce these products and potable water to go out and help these different companies. Yep.
So considering your whole experience this summer, what's something you learned that will benefit you in the next school year and beyond?
I think communication wise, that was very fun learning how to be very efficient, I guess, in my communications. With my single visit, I was lucky enough to go on some other additional visits to get an idea of how that's going to play out. But I think going into the future, I'll be able to better prepared for how I need to communicate efficiently and be able to talk to people to get what I want out of them. Yes.
And just a little bit on the history, and sorry if I missed this right at your introduction. So actually I'm going to start with two things real quick. So one thing I did not introduce in my welcome is the fact that all of this, so Matt, I just wanted you to know and others to know that by about mid-September, we will be done QAing all the data. So everything is draft right now. And then we publish a 2-page case study, which will have that table on it. In this case, you're working on a longer case study that will be published, but all the other students are working on a 2-pager. We have over 90 of those already on our website. The whole idea is for transferability of information to other industries, giving them ideas on pollution prevention. But one of the things that I worked with KDI way back in 2017, and one of the things that was really interesting were that they had 3 primary dairies they were working with right in Hugoton.
Yeah.
Is that still the case, or do they have more dairies?
As far as whenever I was communicating, they don't want to say that they own any dairies, but I think they have close communication with local dairies. I think when I went that he listed out like 6 dairies that they work closely with or have received raw milk intake from.
Right.
And then as for the crop fields, I think they have 3 crop fields where their irrigation pond actually distributes water to.
What is cool about their history is that those 3 dairies put in the initial investment to get this plant going. And they decided at the time I was working with them that they were going to work on dewatering because they were transporting all that milk over to Joplin, Missouri or something.
Yep.
So all that fuel, all those emissions, right? So then they worked on that dewatering process first, which greatly reduced obviously their transportation load. And then they were able to use it through circular economy. And now they're building their own cheese plant right there in Hugoton. So they're getting rid of that transportation too.
Right.
It's a pretty incredible story.
Yes, they've developed greatly and founded in 2012. So over the last decade, they've expanded largely from where they began.
Thank you. Great topic.